Hey, if they want our stories, if they want our tangents, they need to come to Twitch, damn it. Alright, welcome to the Lunch Room Syndicate at the Jock Table. We've been doing some NHL All-Star teams, all-time teams, excuse me, here on the Lunch Room Syndicate. But now we're going to switch up. We're going to start doing some NFL. And first up, I'm Christopher. That's Jay. Hi, Jay. But first up is we're going to start with my favorite team in the NFL, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Let's start with what I think is one of the easiest positions. I'm on it right now. The quarterback position.
Yeah, I do agree that this is an easy one. I don't know how you go with anything other than Byron Leftwich.
I go. He would be my third choice, quite frankly. But the obvious choice is the original Jacksonville Jaguar quarterback, the lefty himself, Mark Brunell.
Might as well just move them on up. I'm not going to sing the song again. Not 3 videos in a row, Christopher.
Almost.
Well, then let's go on to what I think is probably an almost equally easy selection over at running back.
For the first couple years in the Jaguars' history, Natron Means was also very big in the upset of Denver in 1996 in the divisional round.
So where did he come over from?
San Diego.
San Diego Superchargers.
The two guys that are going to be chosen. Let's talk first. I'm going to leave my...
I think we might disagree with the number 1 selection. I think we're going to be split here.
Well, my number 2 selection is MJD, Maurice Jones-Drew.
And we are split.
Well, for me, well, let me get to that. First, let me talk about Maurice Jones-Drew for a second. Maurice Jones-Drew was a bowling ball of a football player, but I remember what he did to Sean Merriman of those San Diego Chargers, one of the most epic blocks of all time.
Such a small dude, but powerful guy. I think he was a bit more dual threat, quite a bit more of a dual threat than Fred Taylor. And you got him on of kickoffs and one of the better kickoff returner.
The reason for me that Fred Taylor is higher is when he was healthy, he at times was the best back in the league. He was up there. He was unstoppable. 1999, Fred Taylor was to me the better back than Maurice Jones-Drew. And yes, I think MJD was a better receiving back.
Okay, so what is the next position?
So let's just move right over to wide receiver.
There are, again, we went with this. I did the same in halfback. I think there are 2 that are obvious picks.
Let's get one of the obvious ones out of the way. Someone that I think should really have more consideration to the actual Hall of Fame. Jimmy Smith. He's number 1 with ease. A little fun story. So everyone knows the 2000 Ravens defense. Jimmy Smith in the 2000 season against the Baltimore Ravens, that Baltimore Ravens defense, in one game had 290 plus receiving yards, like 3 TDs and like 15 catches. Well, let me get to number 2. For me, it's Keenan McCardell.
Okay, yeah, that's who I was going when I said obvious 2. Okay. It was him. I think Allen Robinson's probably a more exciting guy to watch.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
But Keenan McCardell, when you're talking Jacksonville Jaguars, I thought he was like, well, yeah, no shit, he's going in.
Anyway, Allen Robinson. I think you can make a case for Allen Hurns, but I agree. I think Allen Robinson's number 3. It sucks that we let him go for nothing and fucked up that contract negotiation.
Okay, then we are off on to tight end.
Despite Mercedes Lewis being a first-round pick and kind of being a bust, actually, in some ways.
He's another one of the college basketball players come over playing tight end, right?
Yes. He did play football. He did play football at UCLA. Mercedes Lewis was a late first-round pick. He's kind of a bust because he was supposed to be a lot more than he was as a pass catcher, but he's one of the best run blockers in the league to the alternate offense.
Can I quickly just name off 3 that I'm like, these 3 need to be on here?
Yes.
your offensive line: Vince Manaway, Tony Baselli, Brad Meester.
I would agree.
I mean, again, we talked to start this off with that I didn't like. It's going to be hard to come up with offensive linemen. These guys, and I don't even know what order to necessarily put them in.
Baselli's.
I mean, I know it doesn't really matter here. I think Tony Baselli's probably the top name here,
Yes.
even though he doesn't have the games played.
Yes.
But as far as pure talent, Tony Baselli's the best. Brad Meester probably number 2, and I kind of like Manawai. If I had to pick one, is probably my favorite out of the 3.
It's tough because all 3 were badasses. As far as the 4th spot goes, I think it's between probably Hearns or Josh Lambo for me.
You're gonna have the final call on this one. I'd probably go Alan Hearns to get another skill position just because of how lacking we are at the wide receiver spot.
Yeah. I that's where I'm leaning to.
Well, and again, you already tackled my Keelan Cole that I probably would have taken over there. But all right, well, now we're off to the defensive side here.
Yes, and the much harder side of the football for me. So many here, I'm just like, who the hell do you take out?
This is one position that I did take a peek at, so I'm not going in completely blind.
Number 1 for me is easy because Tony Brackens. Tony Brackens is now, not to mention, Tony Brackens was an absolute monster of a defensive end. Number 2, good fucking luck.
I think Marcus Stroud is the standout there. I know you were talking John Henderson before. When I'm thinking Jacksonville, Stroud is one of those names that just pops out like, well, yeah, it's Marcus Stroud. So linebacker. I do like Paul quite a bit. Mike Peterson was pretty good, and then I'm just scratching my head like I don't know the rest of them.
Paula Pazney is someone that I'm putting in this top 3. I don't know where yet. That's the problem.
He's probably my number 1, but again, it's just because of name recognition.
Right, and he has a very good argument for it. I would say Paul Pazney is number 1. For me, I think Kevin Hardy should be in the top 3. I remember him playing. He was an absolute monster. He didn't have the games, but man, his stats equal to everyone else's, which is telling in its own right. So I think he's number 2. Telvin Smith, he just made fucking plays, man.
I think Daryl Smith, despite having the longevity, having the crappier stats, is telling. And I like the Telvin Smith pitcher better than the Mike Peterson pitcher.
You know what? Fair.
Then off to probably just my favorite position in football.
The secondary.
The defensive backs, the cornerbacks, the safeties. We mixed them all into one sack of awesomeness.
I think 3 are obvious.
Well, I think there's one standout in here that I just really, really like.
Rasheem Mathis, though, was Jalen Ramsey. Not quite as good, but was damn good. And he also had like 7 touchdowns. When he picked the ball off, he scored. One of my favorite players for Jacksonville, mid-2000s guy. I loved Rasheem Mathis when he played. A ton of games played. Was good for a long fucking time. I think if he had the very same career, if he played at a high-profile team, I think he would get Hall of Fame consideration.
I really like Jalen Ramsey.
Jalen Ramsey, talent-wise, is the best of this group. I'm pissed that he wanted to trade, so I refuse to put him at the number 1 spot. Okay. But on that same token, I also completely understand, and I can't really fault him for wanting to trade at the time.
He's making one of the 4 spots.
Yeah, well, you can put him at number 2.
Number 1, I get it because we have Rasheem Mathis. Now we have a couple more positions here, 2 more spots to fill in.
Another guy that I will fight you on getting onto this list is Donovan Darius. Hard hitter.
That's one that I'm just not as familiar with.
I will tell you from watching him play, and he was another late 90s guy. He was an absolute monster of a hitter. He was a force in the defensive backfield. He reminded me a lot of guys like Steve Atwater. Brian Dawkins he had the very same style as someone like Brian Dawkins of Philadelphia. He was that type of guy for me. And I love watching him play. He lit people up. He was one of the more integral parts of the defense. Probably my all-time favorite defensive player for Jacksonville. All right, so who was the guy that you were thinking?
The tiniest guy on here.
Fernando Bryant?
Bouier.
Oh, and AJ Bouier? AJ Bouier.
At the end?
Yeah. Yes.
Huh.
Yes. He came over from Houston. And then 2017 in that year, and we all know how legendary that defense was. He was actually, from a statistical basis that year, he was better than Jalen Ramsey. That was a really good signing year because that was the same year we got Calais Campbell, and I think there was one more. The only other person that I would put in consideration with AJ Bouier is Aaron Beasley. I think AJ Bouier was better than Aaron Beasley. You know what? Let's go into alternate D, and then we'll talk about the team.
No. From our previous talks, I think there's an easy number one on here, John Henderson.
Yes. And then we can have the debate.
And then we go back. I'm going to throw in my pick as Tyson Alualu.
I think looking at this list, I would argue a bit more for Calais Campbell. But Tyson Alualu, I think I'm going to give you this. And I think part of it's because we talked to you earlier, he started out as a bust, but he really came into his own.
I am a fan of a guy who will fight for his spot, and I know he was kind of given a spot because of his draft position.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was kind of more of a, we need to play this guy more than he earned it early on, but he didn't just sit back on that and accept it. He kept fighting through, and he got better and better and better. And I'd say by year 3, he was really showing why he got picked as high as he did. Before
we move to defense, Jay, let's go back to the O lineup and just check out our lineup real quick.
Offensive lineup. We have Mark Brunell throwing to Jimmy Smith, Keenan McCardell, Allen Robinson, Mercedes Lewis blocking for Fred Taylor, Maurice Jones, Drew. There's probably only going to be one other team that I can think of that we're going to have offensive line like this. Brad Meester, Vince Manuai, Tony Baselli, and then Alan Hearns as our other alternate here. We're going to go over here and look at the defensive lineup.
Okay.
Where we have a full defensive line. We have a full actual defense here.
We do.
Again, looking at the defense here, I am still a little worried about the linebacker position. I think we have a really solid defensive front. I think we are looking really good on the back end of it, with the middle of the field for an all-time team, I think is a little lacking.
Thank you for watching this NFL all-time team here on the Lunch Room Syndicate. If you're interested in seeing us do this live, check out www.twitch.tv/ZunkerLRS. And for times, I'll let Jay take it away. Go, Jay.
Wednesday, midnight hockey. Friday, midnight football.
I'm not going to put a punter on here that we spent a third-round pick for and got rid of after 4 years, so fuck you, Brian Anger. No fault of your own, but fuck you.